when you talk to your kids, it's so important to do it in that positive, keep it really upbeat and positive. You know, while I was in therapy with Tracy, my birth mother was on the precipice of sharing this information. We'd been in the closet talking in secret for about 3 or 4 years. And she would park behind Walmart and put on her glasses and lock her doors after her shift at the hospital, and we would talk in secret once a month, and this went on for years. And so she started to tell these birth brothers, and she just couldn't do it. And by that time, her husband had come into the secret. And I wanted to go see her again. And I knew I couldn't stay in the hideout in the motel in another town. And he told my birth mother, his wife, he said, "This is your son. He has a right to know his birth family. If you don't tell the boys in 2 weeks, I'm going to tell them." And every week in therapy, Tracy kept encouraging me, "You've got to talk to your birth mom. You've got to try to impress upon her that she's got to take this by the bull by the horns and really do this." I kept working with her and trying to get her, convince her that she could do this. I'm going to help her do this long distance over the phone. If she can call me, she couldn't do it. An example of keeping it positive and a textbook example of it, her husband kept his promise, and 2 weeks later he went out the front door. They live in a tiny little town in the Midwest, went down the street to Darren's house, the oldest son that they raised, the golden child, and went into the house. His wife said, "He's out in the back." He went out there, got Darren in the truck, drove him out to the cornfield. Darren told me years later that he thought Dad was telling him that one of them had cancer. I was telling him. But when he got out there, David was so upset that, as he was telling Darren that, your mom got pregnant right out of high school when she was in college, and she gave this baby away, and he's found us, and this kind of thing. He was just distraught. And Darren was so upset seeing his dad so upset about this that Darren looked at his dad and said, "Dad, we don't ever have to talk about this ever again." And then Darren was in the secret. I mean, the secret got so crowded, it was like we were going to have to buy a bus. So, the thing is that when my kids, during the same time, my 2 little boys were in grade school, and one morning I was pulling up to the curb, and every evening, my wife and my mother-in-law who were living with us, they'd hear us talk. We put the boys to bed, and they'd hear. I didn't know that my kids were up listening to us talk about this. Because again, I was keeping secrets. I was sick. I was as sick as my secrets. And finally, this one morning, I was dropping my younger son, Ben, off at first grade, and I was pulling up to the curb. And I said, "Okay, son, be a really good listener today, and Dad will pick you up for T-ball this afternoon." He said, "Okay, Dad." He goes, "Hey, is Grandma your real mom?" And I quickly pulled out of the drop-off lane. And I drove around the block. But, thank God for Tracy. And thank God I was in therapy. And when my birth mom, 2,000 miles away, she couldn't do this, I realized that I had, he was old enough to understand. And so it wasn't just the appropriateness of the message and keeping it very simple, but I knew I had to keep it really positive. And so we literally drove around the block because, their attention span in first grade was, about 3 seconds. And so I told him, I said, I explained it very simply. And by the time we got around to the drop-off thing again, he's like, "Oh, okay." And I was just positive. I kept it really upbeat. And I said, "Okay, I'll see you at 3 o'clock for T-ball." "Okay, Dad." And just 2 textbook cases of how the message is delivered. I think it's almost as important as the message itself. And then to Michelle, one thing I learned from Nancy's second book, available in your local bookstore, Coming Home to Self. I'm not responsible for my kids' happiness. I'm not responsible for my adopted mother feeling threatened by the fact that I have a relationship with my birth family. In turn, She's not responsible if the oldest son she raised, the golden child, has a stick up his ass because he found out there's another brother. She's not responsible for that. I think we've all done a number on ourselves for so many years, and it's just time to stop buying Band-Aids. I mean, so, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.